Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you my web API starter template. So a lot of people have been asking me about API guide or how to make a web API. But the thing is, I don't usually start from scratch. I reference my other projects and just copy most of the code. So it can be hard to follow that. So what I have done is I've taken all my previous projects and compiled it into a starter template that anyone can use and run. So normally when you create a web API project, you have to create the project with the in Visual Studio. Then you have to set up your folder structure. Yeah, whatever folder structure you want, you have to create many files. Then you have to set up some things like cars. You have to write it, once again write the code for all the APIs. But you might not remember everything, so you probably will have to look in the net or write again. So what I've done is in this template, you can just refer the code, copy it, and just enter your web API, which is what I usually do when I create a web API. So you don't remember all the codings for controllers. You just copy it from the previous controller or the other controller. And it also has a lot of features that I use, like automatic dependency injection is always nice to have. I use it in every project. Also, if you don't understand query filtering, don't worry. This is a thing I use a lot. I will explain it. Also, authentication. Nowadays, everywhere they are asking about authentication. You might not want to implement this, but still, it's very popular. If you are a .NET developer, they will ask, "Do you know authentication?" And disclaimer: this web API template is a minimal API template, not a controller-based template. So in the industry, still many people prefer controllers, but for your small projects, you can use minimal APIs. They are cleaner. So to get started, you just have to run this command. It will be in the description. .NET new install this template package name. You would also don't need to mention the version. It's either the same thing. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to run in the PowerShell anywhere. So .NET new install my template name and it will install the template package. So after it installs the template package, you can see it is being added. You can either do .NET new and enter this name and click enter, it will create. But easier way to do this is from Visual Studio. You can open a new project. Here you can search my name, or if it comes up automatically, it's fine. So this is my web API starter template. I'll show you what code it has. You click next, give whatever project name you want, like this project, and the location is fine. Yeah, I'm gonna click on create, and it's going to create the project. If you see in the Solution Explorer, this is the folder structure I like to use. So this is a minimal API template. So even if you don't know minimal API, it is fine. But instead of controllers, we have endpoints here. So we usually use endpoints. I'll explain this in a different video, but I'm just going over the features in this one. So you can just if you are making your own project, you can create your own endpoints folder here, like um, new item, something like student. You can create your own endpoint. This is student endpoint, and you can just copy the things here. Just make it student everywhere. match case replace, and here again match case replace. So this is how I usually get started. This is just a get API. So sometimes you'll need a different get APIs, just the name will be different. After you create this, you can start creating the interfaces, the models for the endpoint you want, but the general structure doesn't change. So just a example of how you would create your own endpoints if you want to create it. But yeah, I'll show this in detail in another video. Other than that, I'll just go over the features in this. Like I said, this is the folder structure I like. So this is a two-layer structure. It has endpoints and it has the data layer. So some people like to have business layer, but usually I don't think that's a big necessity. Normally, 90% of the web APIs don't use have much business logic. They just get or insert. The 10% they do, you can just add some couple of lines there, and so that's why I don't like using business layer in my own projects. So other than that, the other settings I'll show it to you. So this is the program.cs, and in this one I have already configured the basic things that any application will need. So here's the app settings, and this is the app settings.json as well. Let me open it. So for any web API project, you will need a database anyway. So either you create in Azure portal or you host in your own local. You will have to create it and you have to put its URL here. And for cars, you just need to add your UI URL in this place. Authentication, if you are using, just follow this example and paste the issuer and audience token. If you are using OAuth authentication, which I will recommend, you can use Microsoft Azure portal. Just to create one app ID and issuer and audience you have to add. Again, if you want to know an in-depth video from scratch, I can make it for authentication also. But it's easy to look it up how to just add what. Just that sometimes this configuration code will be confusing. But here you just need to add these two values and uncomment this part, these parts. Then it will do basic authentication. If you want to do authorization, you will have to do it separately with your own logic. Other than that, other dependencies also have been added. So this is cars, this is DB, and other dependencies. I'm using automatic dependency injection here. So you have to mention here the data layer which you are using, and all the similar data layer, it will automatically inject a dependency injection. So for example, this form.dl, if you give in that place, it will automatically map it to iform.dl. If you don't know dependency injection, you definitely need to learn it. But this is very useful because usually in this program.cs, people manually do dependency injection, which is very troublesome. Every time you have add a new data layer, you have to do dependency injection, but not in this one. We can use this. This is a useful library. This is, I think it's Scooter, the name of the library, but this does dependency injection, and this is dependency injection for data layer, and this is dependency injection for validator. So I'm using Fluent Validation. We'll go over that, but this is the program.cs. We have app settings, we have automatic dependencies, we have cars, we have SQL dependency injection. If you don't want to add the use SQL, that's fine. Just leave it blank. But you can just add your connection string here, and it will inject a dependency injection here. And nothing else. I'm still using Swagger, but newer .NET 9 Swagger is not automatically present. You have to add this manually if you're using other templates. And very important thing in minimal API, always you have to mention the endpoints. So if you add a new endpoint here, you have to mention here also, like whatever you are adding. This is a method here. Actually. I didn't remove this. Yeah, you have to add this endpoint for whatever endpoint you have added. You have to mention in the program.cs. Otherwise, it doesn't get mapped. Other than that, you can see the other things. So this is the folder. This is program.cs, the main file. This is the folder for dependency injection, all the dependency injection. This is app settings. This is authentication, basic authentication only. So it will just check if the token you are sending is from that issuer or audience. If you don't add any value, it doesn't get added. And this is course. This is what your UI URL alone it will allow. This is the automatic dependency injection, and this is database dependency injection. This is uh, in my I use these in all of my projects, so this is nice to have. And for validation, I am using Fluent Validator. You can read how Fluent Validator works, but nowadays this is standard, and it's way easier to validate with this than other uh, validating it. It's better than doing it yourself. I like to use this format. Just create a validator, enter your rules. Dependency injection you already did in this part. Um, yeah, you can add your dependency injection automatically here. Just for if you add for one validator, it will automatically apply for all the validators. Same for the data layer. This is if classes like DL implement the interface. That's what it means. Same for this one. So you can do automatic dependency injection for validators also like that. This is the model folder. I have all the models that I use. So these are for the endpoint, and these are for some helper classes, which we'll go through. And yeah, so obviously this is the endpoint. Here we are mapping this get form, and this get form, it will get the request, and then it will first validate the request. If it is a bad request, it will give bad request. Otherwise, it will go to the data layer here. And in the data layer, we are just running a query. So I'm using some query filtering here. But if you don't want to use query filtering, you can just remove this and just add this directly here. This will also work. Just put your query, and here you can remove this because you don't need to pass anything. So you can just finish this in one line if you want, but if you want to use the query filtering, which I'll explain, you can use that. So other than that, minimal API structure, parts, automatic dependency, authentication, and yeah, I haven't explained talked much about the data layer. There's not much in the data layer, just the request from the endpoint gets passed the data layer and it executes whatever query is there, and there is some code for query filtering which I will explain now. But other than that, I'm using Dapper here instead of Entity Framework because I prefer Dapper. But if you want to use Entity Framework, you have to maybe start from scratch. You can refer this project, but most of the time you have to start from scratch because there's a lot in Entity Framework. But I prefer Dapper, and queries, I usually just save it here under constants, under public static read only as string. You can write queries here and then execute them with Dapper here. And I will explain query filtering. Basically, if you want to write a query to get form from form table, So form table might have a lot of fields like form name, form ID, and all the form details. So in one place in the UI, you will need only four fields. In another place, you will need the entire table, and sometimes you will need only some condition where date modified less than 3 days, something like that. So what some people do, they write separate queries for everything. Like they will write select these fields only from form. That is one query. Get form uh, with the filtered fields. Then get form entire table. Get form last 3 days. Something like that they might write. Or they will write one query and then they will have to filter in the data layer, which is very time consuming, and you are fetching the entire query every time anyway. So instead of repeating your code, you can use query filtering. And basically what this allows you to do is, in the request, when you are sending data, you can add this query filter class also. And here in the UI, you will pass some fields and conditions. So you will pass which fields you want and which conditions you want. If you don't pass anything, it will return the entire table. Here you can pass limit offset. This is for pagination. If you want to do pagination, just fetch the first 50 rows first, then from 50 to 100, then 100 to 150, like that you can pass pagination. And you can give the sort by field, you can give the condition, where condition, and you can pass other fields also. So it's easier to show, but I will show this in another tutorial. But this is the gist of query filtering. This is very useful for me because it reduces lot of work. Like three APIs, instead of writing, you will write only one API. You just have to add these classes, and when you are writing query, you have to change the format also. I won't go much in detail, but that's the gist. So let me know if you want to see a tutorial for UI. And when I'm starting my next project, I'm thinking of making videos. But if I don't get time, I'll just stream it maybe from scratch, from database to making the initial UI and finishing it. So let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.